There are 7 football clubs that together perfectly represent the 7 deadly sins, and I will be going over them all, starting with the sin of lust. Lust is defined as an intense or unrestrained sexual craving. A club whose players have made the headlines the most for sexual misconduct is Manchester United. Despite the fall from standard, Manchester United still stands out as the most successful club in English football thanks to the club's rich history, as they were so dominant in the 90s and early 2000s, winning an astonishing 20 Premier League and 3 Champions League titles. However, United's history has never been short of sexual misconduct. In 2011, United's most decorated player, Ryan Giggs, made headlines for having an affair with his younger brother's wife. An 8-year affair that began in 2003 and only came to light when The Sun published the story in 2011. Giggs initially denied the allegations, but in the face of overwhelming evidence, he confessed. His brother's wife narrated how she used her influence as a real estate agent to find houses for their tryst.
I worked as an estate agent, so I had access to properties. It would meet in various properties at different times. I mean, obviously I would make sure that nobody else was going to be there at any point, but yeah, that's pretty much how it was done.
Although the scandal didn't affect Giggs' footballing career, as he went on to captain United to another Premier League title in 2013 and retired as a club legend, it however destroyed his marriage, which cost him €40 million in a divorce settlement. This wouldn't be the first time something like that happened at the club. In 1977, United had to sack head coach Tommy Docherty after he was caught having an extramarital affair with the wife of club physio Laurie Brown. Docherty had managed to become a cult hero at Old Trafford, bringing United back to top-flight football in 1975 and won them the FA Cup in 1977 after defeating European champions Liverpool in the final. Despite enjoying a great season, United had to let Docherty go due to the mess his affair caused at the club. Docherty would stick to his guns as he went on to divorce his wife, with whom he fathered 4 children, to marry the physio's wife, Mary Brown. When he was asked about the situation, he infamously remarked, "I am the first coach who was fired because he fell in love. There were no regrets because Mary is worth more than 20 Man United." Fast forward 45 years later, and United had to let go of another one of their finest footballing talents due to sexual misconduct. In January 2022, Academy graduate Mason Greenwood's girlfriend, Harriet Robson, shared a disturbing video on her Instagram story accompanied by a cryptic caption, "To everyone who wants to know what Mason Greenwood actually does to me." The video was followed by a disturbing audio clip where Greenwood could be heard allegedly forcing himself on her. Greenwood was consequently arrested for attempted rape and assault, but after months of police investigations, the charges were dropped. However, for fear of public backlash, he was never allowed back into the club. As if the club hadn't suffered enough, just months after Greenwood's incident, United's winger Anthony was accused of sexual assault by a Brazilian woman. Although Anthony managed to clear his name, it didn't stop the club from becoming a meme on social media. While Manchester United is known for its rich football heritage, the next club on my list has enjoyed success in recent years, and it is the club that represents the sin of gluttony. Gluttony is characterized by excessive consumption and overindulgence in anything due to indiscipline. A club that is known for biting more than they can chew is Chelsea. When Roman Abramovich bought Chelsea in 2003, his determination to make the club the face of English football led to overindulgence in the transfer market and frequent managerial changes. He broke the 2003 summer transfer record after spending £121 million on 11 signings, which included marquee players like Claude Makelele and Joe Cole. However, after Chelsea went trophyless that season, he sacked head coach Claudio Ranieri and brought in Jose Mourinho from Porto. That summer, Chelsea spent another £92 million on 8 signings, bringing in club legends like Didier Drogba and Peter Cech. Mourinho's tenure would mark the turning point for Chelsea, as he went on to win back-to-back Premier League titles in 2005 and 2006. However, in 2007, after a fallout with Abramovich, Mourinho was sacked. The subsequent seasons that followed were marked by frequent firing and hiring of managers and spending lavishly in the transfer market. In 2022, Abramovich was forced to sell the club due to the outbreak of the Russian-Ukraine war. His 19-year stint at Chelsea saw the club appoint 16 different managers, sign over 100 players, and spend over £2 billion on transfer fees. Chelsea was sold to American businessman Todd Boehly and his associates, a transition that raised genuine concerns whether Boehly could replicate Abramovich's tenacity. Bowley wasn't going to allow anyone to doubt his commitment, and in a desperate attempt to prove he was also a hands-on owner, he made very rash decisions. That summer, he sacked Chelsea's sporting director Maria Granovskaya and made himself sporting director. He then bought several overpriced players that were not on Thomas Tuchel's wish list, which led to tensions between both of them. And after just 7 games into the 2022-23 season, he sacked Thomas Tuchel, a coach who had just won Chelsea the Champions League barely a year ago.
When you take over any business, you just have to make sure that you're aligned with the people who are operating the business. And I think Tuchel is obviously extremely talented and someone who had great success at Chelsea. Our vision for the club was finding a manager who really wanted to collaborate with us, a coach who really wanted to collaborate. And the reality of our decision was that we just weren't sure that Thomas saw it the same way we saw it. And no one's right or wrong. It was just we didn't have a shared vision for the future.
He went on to appoint Graham Porter, a manager who had no experience coaching a top team, and again went ballistic in the 2023 January transfer window, splashing another £300 million on 8 signings. That season, Chelsea had 36 first-team players. The team was so bloated that there were rumors that players had to change outside the dressing room and sit on the floor during team meetings. After a poor run of games, Graham Porter was sacked. In the 31 games he managed, he made an outrageous 115 changes to the starting lineup. It was as if he was set up to fail, as he was stuck trying to give playing time to a lot of players. That season, Chelsea finished 12th, their worst finish in Premier League history. Despite the poor return on investment, Bowley was far from taking a break. That summer, Chelsea spent another £400 million on 12 new signings, paying a record transfer fee of £115 million for Moses Caicedo. At the start of the 2024-25 season, a video from Chelsea's preseason gym session went viral as players could be seen waiting their turn to work out. The video quickly became meme material on social media. The trolling was so intense that Chelsea's head coach Enzo Maresca had to address the issue.
Probably the noise it's more outside because I'm working with 21, 22 players in the last, since we are back from USA. I'm not working with the 42 or 43 players, but I already said many times, but I can see that you like to say that we have 42, 43 players, but more than 15 players, they are training apart, they are not with the team.
In barely 2 years of the Bowley takeover, Chelsea has spent well over £1.2 billion on transfers. How the club has managed not to break financial fair play rules is almost a miracle. While Chelsea has managed to spend recklessly without getting into trouble, the next football club on my list hasn't been that lucky, and it's the football club that represents the sin of greed. Greed is defined as an intense and selfish desire for something, especially wealth or power. A club whose greed has landed them in trouble is Manchester City. Abramovich's success with Chelsea in the early 2000s saw a wave of foreign investors in European football. Man City had gone decades without winning a trophy and were so desperate to have a piece of that pie. Their city rivals Manchester United have been so dominant that it seems as if there was only one club in Manchester.
Financially, we were almost out of business.
In September 2008, the club was sold to Sheikh Mansour, a billionaire from the Abu Dhabi royal family, and just like that, the spending began. One marquee signing after another, and City would go on to win its first Premier League title in 2012, just 4 years after the takeover. As football powers started shifting from traditional clubs, the game began to lose credibility, as footballing success could now be bought with money. UEFA couldn't let that happen, so they came up with the financial fair play rule, which meant clubs weren't allowed to spend more than their generated revenue. This meant bad news for Man City, as they now had money they couldn't spend, and in 2014 they were fined €60 million for breaking the FFP rule. In a bid to beat financial fair play, they came up with a genius plan. They would inflate their sponsorship deals. That way, it would seem as if they are spending within generated revenue. City would manage to go under the radar for some time. However, everything changed in 2018 when German news outlet Der Spiegel published an expose accusing the club of falsifying their financial accounts. The article revealed leaked emails from club officials that suggested they had inflated sponsorship values to mislead UEFA and comply with financial fair play regulations. This led to the Premier League opening an investigation against City in 2019, and after a 4-year investigation, it found City guilty of breaking 115 of the league's financial financial fair play rules with some allegations dating back as far as 2009. During this period, Man City had gone on to win 22 major titles, including a Champions League and 8 Premier League titles. However, despite City's overwhelming success, they hardly got the respect of football fans as they were seen as trophy grifters and plastic.
If the man supports this, he's extremely plastic. He loves BBL, lips, Botox, plastic. This man will love you, but he secretly wants your friend. Because everyone who supports this team wins the Premier League, but secretly just wants the Champions League.
Another major reason for this disrespect is the fact the club values its recent resurgence above its history. Man City has 3 statues strategically positioned around the Etihad Stadium: Sergio Aguero, David Silva, and Vincent Kompany, 3 players who were signed after the Abu Dhabi takeover. Although these players were crucial in City's resurgence, it gives a feeling that the club didn't exist in the 90s and downplays the club's football heritage. There is nothing wrong with pedestalizing players who were important to a club's success, but the way Man City has gone about it, one would think the club started in 2008 and any history before then holds little to no significance. Man City has since been in a legal tussle with the Premier League. If found guilty, they risk being expelled from the league. While Man City invested aggressively to enjoy success, the next club on my list took the opposite approach, and it is the club that represents the sin of sloth. Sloth is defined as the reluctance to work or make any effort, also known as laziness. No club has been more slothful in its dealings than AC Milan. Milan was the team to beat in the 90s and early 2000s, a period they won 7 Champions League and 18 league titles. They had a team that looked like it was put together on FIFA, and every other team was desperate to sign a Milan player. However, the club has experienced a significant decline since 2010, largely due to a lackadaisical approach in the transfer market as they only seek to sign players who have passed their prime years and out-of-favor players who they can get for cheap money without having to contend with other top teams. In 2008, Milan signed an out-of-favor Ronaldinho who was clearly past his prime and had developed a reputation as a party boy at Barcelona. The following season, they would acquire the services of a 33-year-old David Beckham. Although these players were crucial in winning Milan the league title in 2011, they marked a drop in standard that signaled the beginning of the end for Milan. At a time when money poured into European football and smaller clubs aggressively rejuvenated their team, Milan took the opposite approach. Instead of investing in young talents, Milan struggled to keep their most promising players. Kaká joined Real Madrid in 2009 and returned after he was past his prime, same as Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who left in 2012 and returned when he was a worn-out 39-year-old. 2009 Golden Boy Pato left in 2013, and highly rated academy graduate Hakim Mastor left in 2015. They went on to sign a 30-year-old Bonucci from Juventus in 2017 and made him captain, and had a 29-year-old Divock Origi playing with the reserve team. It then comes as no surprise that after winning the league in 2011, it took Milan more than a decade to win another league title in 2022, and since winning the Champions League in 2007, they have been nowhere close to winning it. Milan has managed to enjoy success in recent years. Olivier Giroud and Zlatan, although past their prime years, were crucial in winning the league title in 2022. Milan also came from a 2-goal deficit to win the 2025 Italian Super Cup and are now more frequent in the Champions League. However, Milan currently has a squad that most of the players would find it difficult to start for another top European team, which is a far cry from the team they once had. At the time of making this video, Milan is in strong pursuit of a 34-year-old Kyle Walker, who handed in a transfer request at Man City, and an out-of-favor Marcus Rashford at Manchester United. Both should be easy signings if everything goes well. Just like Milan, the next club on my list also enjoyed its glory days in the 90s, and it is the club that represents the sin of wrath. Wrath is defined as an uncontrolled feeling of vengeful anger, rage, and hatred. A team that was so unhinged in the 90s was Wimbledon. Something most football fans miss about 90s football is its simple and unhinged nature. No team was trying to play it from the back, no inverted left fullbacks or false nine. The players were more expressive, then football was spontaneous and brutal, and the referees couldn't care any less. During this era, there was one player who nobody dared to mess with. That player was Vinnie Jones. During the course of his career, he had over 80 stitches across his face and still holds the record for the fastest foul in a football match. In his earlier years, top teams avoided signing him as he was deemed too chaotic. As a result, at 21 he was loaned out from Widstone FC to Swedish 4th Division side IFK Holmsund. When Wimbledon was promoted to the 1st Division in 1986, The media immediately wrote them off to be relegated, and rightly so. They had just begun playing professional football 9 years ago. The players they had were not league standard, and most notably their home ground was a mess. The roofs were decayed and almost collapsing. The air conditioning didn't work, and they had a tunnel that looked like what one would see in a horror movie. Wimbledon was desperate to prove everybody wrong. They were going to find a way to stay in the league, and if they couldn't win with skill, might as well try winning with force. That summer, they paid £10,000 to sign Vinnie Jones from Whetstone. In a testimonial match at the beginning of the season, Jones convinced his teammate to flash their bare butt at the camera, a gesture that earned them the nickname, the Crazy Gang. With Jones in charge, the Crazy Gang played a very crude, hard-man style of football that gave opposition players nightmares. Playing against Wimbledon away meant forfeiting 3 points and praying you got back home safely to your family. That season, they finished 6th, with 66 points, winning against top teams like Chelsea and Liverpool. Wimbledon is most remembered for their 1998 FA Cup run. In a fifth-round tie against Newcastle, a 19-year-old Paul Gascoigne was proving to be a handful for Jones, and he had to shut the kid down. He then whispered to Gaza, "It's just you and me today, fatty. I ain't playing football, neither are you." And a few minutes later, Jones would create one of the most iconic picture in English football history when he grabbed Gascoigne by his testicles. Wimbledon would go on to secure a 3-1 victory. As Gaza recalled, "It was probably the only game in my life that I was pleased when it was over." Wimbledon went on to face Liverpool in the final. It was going to take a massive upset to beat Liverpool in a cup final, but Jones had a plan. Immediately the match started, he went in with an aggressive slide tackle on Liverpool's midfielder Steve McMahon. According to Wimbledon legend Fashanu, psychologically we had just won the game. From that moment, Liverpool became so disoriented that even when they had the opportunity to level the game in the 60th minute, Liverpool's striker John Aldridge couldn't convert his penalty. Wimbledon held on to their 1-0 lead and went on to win their first FA Cup title. Wimbledon became so reliant on their crude style of play, and in 2000, just 2 years after Jones left the club, they got relegated from the Premier League. Jones, on the other hand, found better use for his talent and went on to become a Hollywood hardman, featuring in the 2006 blockbuster X-Men: The Last Stand, where he played the Juggernaut.
Don't you know who I am? I'm the Juggernaut, bitch!
While Wimbledon fell off, the next club on my list became the face of European football, and it is the club that represents the sin of pride. Pride is defined as believing that one is essentially better than others and failing to acknowledge the accomplishments of others. A club that has shown these attributes is Real Madrid. With 15 Champions League titles and 8 Ballon d'Or winners, Real Madrid has established itself as the pinnacle of club football. For many players, signing for Madrid is not just a dream come true, it also signals you have arrived at the biggest stage of your career. However, Real Madrid's dominance has made them infamous for not showing professional courtesy, especially if things don't go their way. A classic example of this is when the club boycotted the 2024 Ballon d'Or ceremony after news leaked that Man City's midfielder Rodri won the Ballon d'Or ahead of Vinicius Jr. Madrid insisted if Vinicius didn't meet the criteria, the award should be given to the club captain Dani Carvajal, suggesting that only a Real Madrid player could be a worthy winner. Nobody from the club publicly congratulated Rodri, not even his teammate from the Spanish national team. Vinicius would go on to post a cryptic tweet that suggested he was a victim of systemic racism. "I will do it 10 times if I have to. They are not ready." This led to a huge race debate that overshadowed Rodri's achievement. A fan tweeted, "This is the only way Vinny can win a Ballon d'Or," showing a picture of Vinicius in a white face. The tweet garnered 23,000 likes and had over 1 million impressions. When Rodri was asked about the boycott, he insinuated Vinicius wasn't even worthy of coming second. "The last thing I'd be thinking about is people who weren't there and didn't want to participate. I would have chosen Dani Carvajal second and Vinicius third." His statement came as no surprise, as Vinicius' antics undermined his credibility. Real Madrid is also infamous for bullying other clubs into selling their best players against their will. A classic example of this is the signing of Kylian Mbappe from PSG, which has now led to a legal battle between Mbappe and PSG. Liverpool have since faced a similar situation with Trent Alexander-Arnold, who has generated interest from Real Madrid.
I think it's poor the way it's come in, the bid at the time it's come in. That's what Real Madrid do. They try and unsettle things, they make it awkward, they make it they put it into the public very sort of openly that they want to find a player. They think they're Real Madrid, we can do what we want, and that's their way of doing business.
I guess you can't really fault a player for wanting to play football at the highest level possible, and at the moment there is no level higher than Real Madrid. The next club on my list is another one of Real Madrid's arch rivals, and it is the club that represents the sin of envy. Envy is defined as resentment over the blessings and achievements of others. A club that was so desperate for a clapback is Liverpool. One of the toughest debates in football is which is more dominant between English and Spanish football. While the Premier League prides itself as the best league in the world, the Spanish teams have managed to get the best of English teams in cup finals. A team that has been caught in this crossfire is Liverpool. In 2016, Liverpool went in search of their first European title since 2006 when they faced Spanish side Sevilla in the Europa League final. Sturridge would put the Reds ahead in the 35th minute, however Sevilla came back in the second half to secure a 3-1 victory. 2 years later, Liverpool would go again against Spanish giant Real Madrid in the Champions League final. Although they started brightly, things took a drastic turn in the 30th minute when Sergio Ramos seemed to have intentionally injured Mohamed Salah, and in the absence of their talisman, Liverpool crumbled to another 3-1 defeat. Liverpool defender Dejan Lovren wasn't going to allow Ramos to get away with it, and while contesting a header in a UEFA Nations League match against Spain, he threw an elbow that gave Ramos a concussion and went on to rant about it on his Instagram.
Aha! 3-2. Pa ti pričaj, majstore. Na konferenciji, majstore. To pičke obične.
Sticking it to Ramos wasn't going to be enough, and in 2022, after Real Madrid defeated Man City to qualify for another Champions League final, Salah tweeted, "We have a score to settle." Madrid would once again prove to be too strong for Liverpool as they went on to win a record 15th Champions League. In 2023, they met again in the Champions League round of 16. 2 quick goals from Darwin Núñez and Mo Salah gave Liverpool the early lead. However, Real Madrid came from behind to secure another 5-3 victory. It was beginning to look like Liverpool might never get their revenge. However, when both clubs met again the following season in the group stage of the Champions League, Liverpool would for the first time manage a hard-fought 2-0 victory over Madrid. During the post-match interview, Liverpool's head coach Arne Sloth couldn't help himself from swearing on national TV.
I wouldn't say it's the same as any other one because you know how special it is to play against a club that won this Champions League so many times and are the reigning champions as well. Dominated Europe for the last few years. We're a pain in the ass for Liverpool many times as well. So we knew it was a big week, but I said if this week is over, next week is a big week again.
Although it wasn't a cup final, the win against Real Madrid has given Liverpool the belief to go all the way this season as they are now top of both Premier League and Champions League tables.